Hello, this is Real World Audio. I just finished playing some Bach cantatas, and now it's time for thoughts on audio. And I like to turn back to high efficiency loudspeaker sound versus lower efficiency loudspeakers. And previously, I just made a video where I said that lower efficiency loudspeakers compress dynamics compared to high efficiency ones, and there I showed a dB calculation that the 82 dB efficient loudspeaker compresses dynamics 20 dB versus the 102, and as it was pointed out that was a wrong calculation, and indeed I made an error in the calculation, and I'm going to correct that, and I'm going to change the title of that video also to so that no one mistakes it, because there is no or I would say dynamic compression doesn't happen on the mathematical scale. So when you just look at the mathematics, how the numbers work out, they don't. And now I'm going to show what was my mistake. So let's say this is the 0 dB line, and I'm going higher in the efficiency. That's, let's say this is 102 dB efficiency, and that's a 0 dB output, 102 dB output. Now we have a loudspeaker that has 82 dB efficiency. So it means that when we are hitting both of them with a 1 watt signal, then the more efficient will give will resolve that 1 watt signal between 0 dB and 102 dB. So this is what we are hearing from that loudspeaker, that if there is material which is recorded from 0 to 102 dB, we can enjoy the entire thing. And if you say that, well, if it's 102 dB loud, you cannot hear 0 dB, yes, that's correct. But why the dynamic range is important? Because when you listen to orchestral classical music, then there are parts of an orchestra piece which ride between 0 dB to 30 dB. Those are the quiet bits. And there are the loud bits which ride between 80 dB to 100 plus dB. And to be able to enjoy a classical orchestral piece at its full, you definitively need a wide dynamic range. And that's absolutely true. If at the same time there's a 10 dB sound playing and 100 dB, it doesn't matter what happens at the 10 dB level, because that 100 dB is going to drown out even 50 dB loud noises. You won't be able to hear them at all. However, the entire music is not riding at 100 dB. Only when you are listening to rock and roll or stuff like that, and then everything rides at the top 10, 20, 30 dB level, nothing drops below that. That's why rock concerts are so painful and deafening for the ear, because everything is always here. And that's not dynamics, that's just SPL. Dynamics is when you have loud material and when you have very soft material. And the bigger the difference between the two, the greater dynamics you can enjoy. However, this is the case for the ultra efficient speaker with 1 watt, that you can enjoy anything between 0 or 1 dB or so, if your ears are in perfect shape and the background noise level is extremely low, then you can get this wide range. Now, 1 watt, the same signal driving the 82 dB efficient loudspeaker, then what will happen is that the loudest sound will be at 82 dB and the softest will be below 0. So basically that 18 dB will fall under the theoretical limit of our hearing, and you will be unable to hear that. Now the same thing happens if you turn down the volume knob for the 102 dB loudspeaker to play at the same volume level, then you will have the same dynamic range, and in both cases you will be able to hear the 0 dB to 102 to 82 dB range. Now, if we are going back here to that 1 watt level here with the ultra efficient speaker and the average efficiency speaker, instead of we put it like 10 watt, 100 watt input power, then the loudest sound and the softest sound, they will play at the same volume. So this is the mathematics, and this is how logarithmic scale works for the dB values. And what the numbers say, that if the technology is perfect, then based on numbers alone, there is no dynamic compression. So what I said in my previous video, that I suggested that if we bring that up, then I took the lowest level as the 0 dB and then took it up, then we had like 20 dB missing in the bottom. No, we won't, because that part of the music which is below the audibility will now ride up and will become audible. However, that's this is why I made that mistake, or my brain helped me to trick me into getting that foolish conclusion, which I just came up with on the spot after a really terrible day at work. So please don't just crucify me for trying to sell some really crappy idea to you guys. I really was not at the top of my faculties, and I spent about 10 minutes thinking about the problem. And this is clearly something that requires much deeper thought than that. And it really appears that even when people are working with this problem, I haven't met anyone who had a really good explanation of explaining what we hear, what the phenomenon is, what can be happening. And what I was thinking yesterday night is that what my mentor told me about high efficiency and low efficiency drivers, what's the key difference between them, because I was really curious. So this was at the start of my audio journey, when I went into void pipes, and I asked too, like, what's the difference between a high efficiency driver and a low efficiency driver. And because I noticed that there is like motor strength. So for high efficiency drivers, motor strength is generally much higher than normal to low efficiency drivers. But is there something else? And he said yes, there is something else which is just as important as motor strength, and that's the compliance of the suspension. So what does it mean? It means that when you have your loudspeaker driver, I'm pointing at the Mirage now, then there is the surround, and the surrounds are relatively similar on all drivers, or at least the compliance of the surrounds, like how hard do they make, how much they restrict the movement of the cone, is relatively similar. However, there's the spider which is on the back of the motor that we do not see from the inside. You see it only when you take it apart. The hardness of the spiders can be drastically different between loudspeakers. And when you look at lower efficiency loudspeakers, that those spiders are very hard, which may so the compliance is very low of these drivers. And just as a curiosity again, I haven't done this in a long time, but I just did this before I started shooting this video, and yesterday too. So if I push the cone, so this is a lower efficiency driver, so it's an 89 dB efficient loudspeaker, and if I push the cone, there is resistance. So the cone doesn't want to go in. It's kind of like I'm trying to force my way in. And then now we cannot see the big, maybe and try not to break my camera stand here. Okay, let's just move it this way. And when I pushed the cone of the ultra efficiency driver, then it was like my finger just having no resistance whatsoever. And that's something key, because what happens is that the motor strength does not just need to move the weight of the cone back and forth. It also has to fight against the compliance of the surround. So basically the compliance acts as a parking brake on the driver. And for an ultra efficient driver, it's like there's just a minimal park brake. It's kind of like you are releasing your park brake on the car, but you forgot to release it fully, and there's just a tiny bit being pulled on. And for a lower efficiency, it's like having your park brake like jammed almost to the braking point, and you are trying to drive like that. And I think that might be the real difference, why we perceive the difference in dynamic expression between these two types of loudspeakers. Because what everyone notices, what I have noticed, and what some of you are noticing too when you are trying out ultra efficient loudspeakers, is that you notice that when you make that change, then it's like the noise floor just drops, like disappears. And there was something like riding up, which is like the background noise, and now that's gone, and you can hear like tremendous layers of music below at very low levels that were not there before. And that's why you can play these ultra efficient speakers at a very low, very soft whisper volume and still have a wonderful appreciation of music, while with average efficiency loudspeakers you have to crank them up, because you've played them soft, the music collapses and disappears. And apparently this is not a mathematical problem. So let me just try to place this back to a position where we can see here. So not that sort of problem that I hinted at quite wrongly, that that the mathematics, we have the sliding scale and this part is chopped off. No, it's not chopped off, but it's going to slide up from undetectable to detectable when we are going higher. So that's what the mathematics say. And that's what happens to purely at the domain of information content and dynamic range. However, now we have a mechanical problem as well. And the mechanical problem is the compliance. So because for a low efficiency loudspeaker, we have a hard compliance, and a hard compliance because that's what I was testing, that when I try to push the driver in, it has a very hard feel to it. So I when I try to move it slightly, it doesn't want to move. It's like trying to move a weight with my fingers. And that resistance, it doesn't allow very soft movements. It prevents those soft movements. So basically that would that would explain what I am experiencing and what people worldwide are experiencing with average to low efficiency loudspeakers, is that when you try to listen to them at loud volume and louder, they are fine, they are playing nicely. But when you try to go lower and lower in the volume, then the stage and everything collapses, because they are actually not able to give you sounds down to 0 dB. But they have problem because they have that hard compliance, and that hard compliance does not allow the driver cone to make those tiny miniature slow tiny movements which cause those whispers of sounds. So basically when you are turning down the volume, you reach the limit of the compliance of the driver. Below that, your dynamics will disappear and you can't hear anything. Now, and also this hard compliance is one of the two reasons why your driver will only give you 82 dB SPL for 1 watt, versus here we are getting 102 dB for the same energy input. and that's because one, here we have slightly stronger motor, but if we would tone down the motor strength to be equal to this motor, and even then when we give a softer compliance to the same motor, it will become higher efficiency driver. So what does that mean? It means that the compliance restricts the cone movement less. So with the same amount of energy input, we are getting a larger impulse. Okay, so let me just put this into another way. So we are having 1 watt signal input, and with a light compliance efficient motor that gives us a resolution of up to 102 dB, right? And now when the strength of the compliance increases, that cuts this 102 dB down to 82 dB. So that's a limiting factor there. And now we are assuming basically that what the measurements tell us that people have measured so far, what you have provided me, is that it looks like the ratio of the dynamic range does not get changed because the compression is harder. So the relationship between the dB scale, it just stays the same. So it doesn't cause a dB compression, it just causes a loss of efficiency. However, I think that it probably does more than that, because when there is a restriction to the movement, even though when we just measure a pure sine wave, then the driver, the motor, will be able to push the cone back and forth with that certain wattage of information and create that easy signal. But when we have a very complex signal, and then the cone needs to make like a very complex motion, then we will have more problems with that. And I think it's not just I think, but it is a fact that when you have, let's say, just use the car analogy, when you have your parking brake on, you have a much lower, much lesser control over the car compared to not using your parking brake when you are driving. And so that's one thing, that the compliance might be doing something to the perception of the sound, and maybe it's not causing any compression of the actual measured dynamic range, but it does change the behavior of the cone to a degree that makes it uncomfortable or noticeable to our hearing. So I'm taking up quite a bit of time, so now let's stop. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts about this issue? And thank you for commenting and giving me those wonderful experiences, measurements, and I think this is something why I made this channel, to really think about these ideas, try to push the boundaries of our understanding, of our experiences. It's just kind of like also asking you, are your experiences similar to mine, or if they are different, why are they different? And then together we can find it out. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Bye bye.